Hello, everyone. My name is Adam Mummery. My pronouns are he and they, and I am the Grants and Data Manager at A.R.T. New York. I am a tall white person with silver-framed glasses. I am wearing a tan loose shirt with a black turtleneck, a silver heart necklace, black pants, and black boots. Yes. As we gather, we at A.R.T. New York would like to take this time to acknowledge that wherever we are currently located on Turtle Island, otherwise known as North America, we are in occupied territory. A.R.T. New York's membership in the 5 boroughs of New York City operates on the unceded ancestral land of the Lenape, Wappinger, Canarsie, Rockaway, and Matinacock communities. We want to honor and celebrate all of these indigenous communities, their elders past and present, as well as future generations. We also want to take this time to acknowledge that after there was stolen land, there were stolen people. We want to honor the generations of displaced and enslaved people that built and continue to build the country that we occupy today. Thank you. Since we are also gathered today in person as well as virtual, since this is being live streamed, let's also take a moment to consider the legacies of colonization embedded within the technologies, structures, and ways of thinking we use every day. We are using equipment and high-speed internet not available in many indigenous communities. Even the technologies that are central to much of the art we make leave significant carbon footprints, contributing to the changing climates that disproportionately affect indigenous peoples worldwide. I invite you to join me in acknowledging all this, as well as our shared responsibility to make good of this time, and for each of us to consider our roles in reconciliation, decolonization, anti-racism, and allyship. Thank you. The virtual part of this land acknowledgement was brought by Adrian Wong from Spiderweb Show in Ontario, Canada. But welcome to the show, y'all. Welcome to Spring Summit 2025. And thank you for joining us tonight for key takeaways from Health and Wealth, supporting New York City theatermakers through data and insights. We have spent many months to get here tonight, surveying our members, analyzing the data, and developing a report that will come out next month. The panel today will focus on key takeaways from that report, so get excited. The A.R.T. New York staff is excited to have each of you here and want to take a moment to express deep appreciation for our sponsors. With their support, A.R.T. New York is able to offer convenings to New York City theatermakers free of charge. This convening is presented by Broadway World Arts FMS with support from 59 East 59th Street Theaters, Capacity Interactive, Denham Wolf, Real Estate Services, Eisencraft CPA, Finance Friend, and with thanks from our cherished partners, Broadway Babysitters, Qbox, Producer Hub, Sobel Bixel, and Spectrix. Thank you so much. Your experience while at the Spring Summit is super important to us, and we'd appreciate your feedback as well for future plannings, as these are annual convenings. Throughout the summit, we encourage you to scan the QR codes. You will notice them on the wall, near the door, near the food, posted to share your thoughts. So please do when you have a chance. First, though, and without further ado, please join me in welcoming composer, director, and community minister Orion Johnstone to offer an open invocation.
If you're up for it, please join me in that hum. Yes, gorgeous. Please continue humming. Please take care of yourself. Breathing whenever desired, making sure the hum continues for just another minute. What you're doing right now is an embodied practice of collective liberation and collective care. resting when you need to, showing up as you can, listening at the same time as you are lifting your voice. I invite you to notice how that feels, that experience, and it sounds so yummy. Please continue for just another minute as I sing a few words. Who makes the future? Who makes the future? Oh, who makes the future? We do. We do. Who makes the future? We do. We do. Look around, friends, I am right there with you. Who makes the future? You know we do. Who makes the future? We do. We do. Who makes the future? Look around, friends, I am right here with you. Who makes the future? You know we do. That song is by my friends, the Banksons, and my name is Orion Johnstone. My pronouns are they or he. Brief visual description, I am a white person with shoulder-length brown hair, mustache, glasses, fake leather pants, and a crocheted brown shirt. And it is an honor and a delight to be here with all of you today. And I stand here in the stream of love that is queerness and transness throughout all of time, from before there were words for those things, and which will continue as long as there is life. And I presume that many of us, or maybe all of us, have been feeling a lot lately. Has anyone else been feeling a lot lately? I see I am not alone. And I invite you, if it feels right for you, to maybe place a hand on your heart and just notice for a few breaths, what are you feeling right now? Really, really, what are you feeling? Just noticing and welcoming that just as you are. I'm so grateful that whatever we are feeling, whatever lies ahead, that we are in it together. The only real solace for me is solidarity, and knowing that how unraveling any thread of empire is connected to tearing the whole thing apart. As Lilla Watson said, if you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because you know your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. So in flagrant defiance of the calculated efforts to keep us isolated from one another, to keep us from sharing our longings and our imaginations with each other, I find solace and strength in the solidarity in this room and on this live stream, and so far beyond. And we'll continue to weave today with our tears, with our dreams, and with our data that shines a light that shines a light on what is and what could and should be. But before we engage directly with that data, I want to, I wrote here, that sacred data. I want to offer a few more practices of connection and fire tending. I know that each of us brings with us ancestors, communities at our backs, pet friends, plant friends, maybe spirit guides, and certainly others in this realm who love us, who are there for us and who share a devotion to the more just world we know in our bones is possible. So I want to invite each of us to feel into connection with a supportive ancestor, blood family or chosen family, whoever you feel in connection with today. I know for me, Morgan Janess is powerfully with me today. Who is with you? Just allowing a moment to feel into that. And next, I invite you to feel into who is someone still alive in this realm who really has your back, a friend, a collaborator, who is alongside you in the deepest sense. So after another breath or two, feeling in connection, if it's right for you, I invite you to look around the room and behold and feel everybody here. And as you do, to feel everybody at everybody's backs, the communities that each of us and all of us are connected to. Breathing into this room full of people that I trust are dedicated to not complying in advance, dedicated to serving life regardless of circumstance. And I'm feeling the power of all of us here and the wider circles that support all of us. And I invite you to bring yourself with all of your presence tonight, with your full self, and also to release into that collective holding that is bigger and wider than us. Art Co-op asks, what if fascists were more afraid of the people than the people were afraid of fascists? What if fascists were more afraid of the people than the people were afraid of the fascists? We know it is past time for transformation, for composting empire within and beyond us. We know our collective survival depends on our capacity to imagine and dream as we stand together. Transformation is inevitable, and we need each other more than ever. I personally believe that theater workers are uniquely equipped to lead this culture shift. We who co-create containers to be moved together, to move together. The kinds of community experiences and the wisdom we need is already here. It has already been here. What our bones already know. And to be in that sense of, this is already here, helps it to grow. Well, may we be the seedlings that unapologetically grow to crack through the concrete, knowing that life begets life and courage begets courage. As Tony Cade Bambara said, the role of the artist is to make the revolution, anybody here know this quote? Irresistible. The role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible. So I invite you to connect with that in you, which is irresistible, which is inextinguishable. Maybe one more time, placing a hand on your heart, maybe closing your eyes. Connecting to that flame inside you that knows how things could and should be. That flame that cannot be put out no matter what. And after a few breaths, I'll offer one last invitation. So in closing, I invite you to sing that song by the Banksons along with me, if you wish. You can hum, you can dance along if singing's not your thing. Any and all ways of participating are so joyfully welcomed. And I'll break it down line by line, and then we'll put it all together. Who makes the future? We do. We do. 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 Look around, friends, I am right here with you. Look around, friends, I am right here with you. Who makes the future? You know we do. Who makes the future? You know we do. Yes, you've got it. And when we put it all together and say, we do, I invite us all to feel into and co-cast that spell of just how big, how wide, how powerful that we is, that goes so far beyond us directly here in the room. Ready? Here we go. Who makes the future? We do, we do. Who makes the future? We do. We look around, friends. I am right here with you. Who makes the future? You know we do. 2 more times. Who makes the future? We do, we do. Who makes the future? We do, we do. Look around, friends, I am right here with you. Who makes the future? You know we do. Last time, give it all you got. Who makes the future? We do, we do. Who makes the future? We do, we do. Look around, friends, I am right here with you. Who makes the future? You know we do. Thank you.
Oh, good evening. Thank you for that. I needed that. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. It's lovely to see everyone here, and there are a lot of faces I don't know, which is always really wonderful to be in a room with and have the ability to meet some new folks. So thank you for having me here. I am Sarah Calderon. I am the Executive Director of Creatives Rebuild New York. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a white woman with brown hair. I'm wearing a jean button-down shirt, a black velvet jacket, black pants, and black shoes. I'm from Creatives Rebuild New York. For those who don't know, we have spent the last 3+ years providing guaranteed income for 2,400 artists across New York State for 18 months. Yes. And we have provided jobs for 300 artists for 2 years in collaboration with community organizations across the state. So we are going to sunset soon. And so with that, we're releasing a lot of information, a lot of data, evaluations about sort of what worked, implementation evaluations, process evaluations about what we could have done better, and a sunset website with all of those resources as we begin our sunset. But I think some of the most interesting work that we did relates to what Art New York has been doing, right? Collecting data. We did a survey that we were able to get 13,000 artists from across New York State to respond to. And we found sort of quite a few things that really mirror what this exciting report also says. We found that creative workers are more likely to be gig workers and freelancers, not surprising to everyone in this room, who lack the same benefits, protections, and access to resources that typical full-time employees have, right? Benefits are often tied to employment, and creative workers are often not considered employees or considered employed at all. Half of the 13,000 artists who responded to our survey were making less than $25,000 a year. Half of artists reported that they make a living as gig workers. And this aligns with your findings, right? That companies have really been shifting to gig and contract work and part-time work. Your upcoming report also found that, full-time roles were reduced and dropping by 22%, and that independent contractors were increasing by 71%. And that the smallest organizations really rely heavily on contract and part-time labor. So again, I think nothing that we all don't know, but really Starting to look at creative workers and look at a field in a way and with data that I hope can give us all a lot of power to work together. We also know, sorry, I don't mean to be such a downer here, but that I'll get positive later, that artist precarity is really extreme, right? We found that 28% of artists in our survey reported being unemployed, 41% reported being vulnerable to a medical emergency, 55% reported that they carry unmanageable debt, and 62% reported that they have no financial safety net, right? And we're not the only groups who have been thinking about this, right? Dance NYC, Museum Hue, others have been starting to collect this really important data to help us, sort of think about things a little bit differently. We know that New York's creative workforce is complex. It consists of people engaging in vastly different creative practices and experiencing vastly different economic circumstances. Yet we also know that from the available data that there are critical needs that many creative workers share with each other, and I think really important, especially today, with other low-income workers. Those, everything from basic economic security, affordable communities and spaces, good working conditions, benefits, and opportunities for creative growth, but also for wealth building. So as we are sunsetting, we are really trying to embed the continued advocacy for creative workers in a variety of different ways to try and help this work to continue and these critical needs to be addressed in the future. So the first thing we did was launch the New York State Cash Alliance, and that is a collaborative group of folks from across the state, many who were GI, guaranteed income pilots, both arts and non-arts folks, a lot of non-arts folks, who have come together to advocate for cash policies and guaranteed income. So that will exist beyond us, which will be great. We also created a policy playbook that really tries to encourage arts and culture folks to think cross-sector, right? So what are the workforce development? What are the housing and financial security policies? What are the labor protection policies? And the economic development policies, along, of course, with arts and culture policies, but that we need to start thinking about as we think about sort of alternative funding structures and policies that can really get to the heart of sort of creative workers and their needs. And finally, we're about to launch, although we have not done it yet, a statewide advocacy coalition that can really be the counterpart, I would say, and hopefully the supporter of NYSCA, and really think about how do we start advocating across the entire state. So upstate and downstate folks really thinking about all of these policies and thinking sort of structures that we need to move post-pandemic, right? And in this new world of federal funding, reduced federal funding and infrastructure. So we're excited about this upcoming launch. Art New York has been sort of with us on that journey, and we'll announce more in the coming weeks. As you all know, right, these are difficult times. There are rapid changes happening. There are structures and infrastructures being demolished without thought and care. And I think we're at a really important crossroads, right? We have more and more folks considering what it means to support individual artists post-pandemic. We have art service organizations being disinvested. We have entire infrastructure that supports our arts and culture ecosystem being disassembled. And this is really the time to rethink sort of infrastructure, to embrace new models, and I think most important, to radically collaborate with folks. Having done a lot of work in the South Bronx before this work at Creatives Rebuild New York, I really came to understand a community that had been disinvested and had to build back. And when it did, it really embraced arts and culture and celebrated the artists that were there and the culture makers and the culture bearers. And it really learned and did this quite naturally to radically collaborate in the face of unbelievable scarcity. Artists supported the Bronx as it reimagined its infrastructure, and reimagining futures, as we just heard a minute ago, I think is a unique skill that artists have. I believe that this can happen now, that we can imagine new structures together to support our work and really to support artists at the center of that rebuilding. I said I would be positive. I have hope. But I am excited, right? I'm excited for the data. I'm excited for the work that Art New York did that's forward thinking and really understanding sort of how to create power with data and really start to strategically think about how everybody can come together, and especially at this moment. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and congratulations on all your work.
All righty, thank you everybody. We're going to continue into the next part of the evening. Thank you again, and please give another round of applause to Sarah Calderon from Creative Rebuild New York. Fantastic work that organization did, and they were also supporters of the Health and Wealth Project, so we are also grateful for their contribution there. We will be heading into a panel discussion now, so I am taking my seat here. And we are going to start, of course, with our round of introductions, and I will kick us off. Hi, everybody. My name is Justin Birdsong. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm the founder and principal of Skeleton Key Strategies, which is a consultancy that's had the privilege to work on this project with SMU Data Arts and Art New York over the course of the last 18 months or so. I am a large white man with short brown hair, green eyes, and a brown beard, and I am wearing a white sweater with pink cherry blossoms, dark slacks, and gray shoes.
Hi, my name's Annie Barres. My pronouns are she and her. I am a white woman with brown hair. I'm wearing a houndstooth jacket and gray pants, brown shoes. And I'm here because I was a postdoctoral fellow at SMU Data Arts, and I had the honor of working with Art New York and Justin and his team on this project. I'm currently on staff at the Mellon Foundation.
Hi everyone, my name is Talia Corren. I use she, her pronouns. I am one of the co-executive directors of Art New York. I am a white woman with curly brown hair, wearing a denim jacket and black turtleneck and printed skirt, and it would be seasonably appropriate bare legs. But that's not the April we are having yet.
Hi folks, I'm Risa Shoup. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs, and I'm also a co-executive director of Art New York. I'm a white person with short dark hair and pink plastic glasses, a navy blue jacket. I don't know what to call this color. I'm gonna say an olive t-shirt underneath, navy slacks, bright pink socks, and green shoes, which is not a Wicked reference, but if you want it to be, that's great too.
we could hold space for it.
Yeah, we'll hold space for it. Can we do it?
Please, let's go there this evening, I hope. So thank you again so much for joining us for this conversation. As a note to you all, you're going to hear a theme, I think, in the pieces of the conversation tonight, which is about intentionality. And so we're going to start tonight how we mean to continue by sort of setting for you all our sort of shared intention for this discussion. So we have learned a lot through this project, not only about the New York City Theatremakers' current situation and responding to, I think, a lot of the kinds of feelings that some of our earlier speakers tonight have referenced, right? The thing that we were ultimately looking for in that sacred data, which I actually love and I'm going to be stealing, I think, is that we were looking for the data to help us illustrate points that we knew to be true, anecdotally, as a field, as professionals working at Art New York, as theater makers who make up that staff and make up the community around this organization. There were lots of things that we already kind of knew to be true, but didn't necessarily have the quantitative evidence to be able to present those cases in a way that was really strong. And so I think I actually love thinking of the data itself as sacred, because I think it's connecting the experience that we all have with ideally the words and the messages that will actually help make a difference in what those experiences are reflecting, which we're going to share with you tonight. So this is also where you all come in. So you'll see on this highlights document, I believe it's on the highlights, if not, it's on the report, that this report implicates all of us. Meaning that there is a role for all of us. Each one of you here in this room, no matter what role you play in the arts and theater scene in New York City, there is a role for you. Orion said earlier that your liberation is intertwined with mine, or something very close to that. And I think that's a lovely way for us to start off this conversation. All of us, it's going to take all of us, not only bringing these perspectives together, but using those words to advocate for what it could look like differently and rebuilding in the same way that Sarah just described. So with that as our backdrop, we're going to set the stage. And Talia, I'd like to start with you. Can you help give just some background for us on the impetus for the research and who funded it, and ultimately what was the problem we were trying to address?
Yeah, so interestingly, this is and the kernel of this idea emerged in one of Risa and my earliest conversations when I started in January of 2023. And I think, joining Art New York at this moment where theaters were sort of in their first season after reopening, we looked at each other and were like, we have so many questions about what is the Art New York community right now, what has happened to us, and where are we going? And I think that we, as Justin said, had this sense of we know, but we don't feel like there has been shared language or a shared narrative or a shared way of understanding where to go from here. And I think we also knew that all of the sort of previous frameworks around the norms or the behaviors that had gotten us to that point were not going to get us to wherever we needed to go next. And that was true not just for Art New York, but I think we really felt it as service providers, as a membership organization. We felt a real imperative to be the change we wanted to see, to integrate new practices, to think about and interrogate our way of working so that we could be real partners and collaborators with our members and with the field at large. And then we just knew that there were things that we didn't know. And funders would come to us being like, what's actually happening? Or is it true that places are starting to close? Or is it true that they're not? Or is it true that everybody's doing more co-productions? Or is it true that people need space? Do we have too many rehearsal spaces or not enough rehearsal spaces, right? People were coming to us with all of these questions about what is true? And I think that the impetus for this project was really trying to understand the trajectory that we had all gone on, which was both shared and incredibly unique, right? I think we know that as individuals and as theater makers, what our experience both during the height of the pandemic and afterwards has been really splintering and really fracturing, and that's a challenge that we face, I think, as civil society and also as a community looking to reorient and re-anchor ourselves in a shared vision. And so all of that is to say, then we put in a proposal to the Booth Ferris Foundation. And it was sort of this extraordinary opportunity to think about a bold multi-year project that could have a real transformative impact on Art New York service provision and on the field at large. And we were so grateful to be funded by them for, as Justin said, an 18-month really robust engagement, which I think many times we've looked at each other and been like, wow, we're so grateful that we gave ourselves the amount of time that we needed to do this deep reflection, another preview of what's to come, of taking time and being able to invest deeply in thinking about what is true, to think about the future. And so we set out, and I think we'll talk more about how we did it, but we set out to build this container of a year pre-COVID, so a 2019 snapshot, and then 2022 and 23. So looking at the 2 years sort of once folks started producing again. And I think that we have both answered a lot of the questions that we set out to answer from the beginning, and also have uncovered and named a lot of things that I don't think we knew we would. Yeah. And so I think it's been a really rich and deep experience that we're so excited to now include and share you with.
100%. And I was thrilled to be able to be in some of those very early conversations. And also very early, we knew that this was the kind of project that we wanted to have some real academic rigor behind it, which is why we made sure that in our planning and in our funding requests that we were thinking about the role of a research partner. And that research partner ended up being SMU Data Arts, which is an organization, full disclosure, I have long ties to in its previous forms over the last 20 years or so, which is now housed within the Meadows School of the Arts at Southern Methodist University. And we were privileged to work with Annie on the project at that point. So Annie, tell us a bit about the research process itself and how you ensured that the data was going to be meaningful for the Art New York members.
Yeah, so we were really excited about this project because it allowed us to take a mixed methods approach to answering some of these really interesting, pressing questions. And that meant that we used a quantitative survey of Art New York members, and then we looked at the trends that we were seeing, and to better understand kind of what was going on under those trends, like we conducted interviews with member organizations, and those informed the case studies. And I should say too, the Art New York team especially really ensured representation across different types of theaters, as well as individual artist members. And ultimately, we had 104 completed surveys from member organizations, and 46 individual artist members completed the survey. And in terms of how we analyzed the data, again, we worked really closely with the Art New York team to surface insights that were most useful to guiding their strategy, but also that hopefully will be really actionable takeaways for this community of organizations, of artists, of funders.
Yeah, 100%. Talia, I'm going to kick it back to you. So I know one of the key themes that we have discussed at length has to do with resource access, and another one has to do with community-specific challenges within your membership. What were some of the notable findings about those different organizations experiencing those challenges?
Yeah, so I think like the given circumstances, right, if we're setting the stage, like the given circumstances are that the field has reached the financial cliff that we all felt was coming, right? Like it's real. We are simultaneously living through, we all know in our personal lives, increased costs. And that is both in recognition of real labor changes and labor practices that our field has been long behind in, but also just the cost of doing business, your insurance, and spaces, and production, and lumber. And that is playing out against this 20-year decline in private philanthropy. And the COVID moment of funding was hugely disruptive. Obviously, disruptive in positive ways in that it allowed people to keep jobs through programs like SVOG and PPP, and like massive private philanthropy investments in incredible programs like Creatives Rebuild New York. We saw this sort of like opening of the dams that had felt closed for a long time. And in a way, that disruption allowed the field to be in the place where it is now, where if you were able to sort of marshal those resources and steward them, you have time now. But also, disruption is disruption. And I think one of the things that we know about our field is because we often run on such lean margins, disruption is really hard to absorb. There's very little wiggle. And so we're now at a moment where those costs keep rising. No private funding sources have kept pace with inflation, period. We have also seen, so just comparing 22 to 23, this isn't looking pre-COVID, contributed revenue dropped 36%, adjusted for inflation. So there are tremendous tightenings that are real. So I think like that is the scene setting. And as Sarah said, like I too am hopeful. And also I think one of the things that we feel really strongly about is we have to be honest about naming the given circumstances in order for us to make the kind of bold, transformative alchemy that we want to manifest for our field. And I think that actually Sarah's reflections on her time in the South Bronx, I think, are really salient, because I think there are some key outliers to some of the sharp drop-offs in both paid audience and contributed revenue. And those are in organizations that specifically serve BIPOC communities and also other identity-specific groups like LGBTQ or gender-focused organizations, or those serving disabled and neurodiverse folks. So I think there's a real lesson. There are two lessons, at least, but there's one real lesson in thinking about what it looks like to lean into that radical collaboration, which is another phrase that I hope to steal, of like, there are communities who have wrongly had too much practice being creative and strategic and collaborative, and also really specific about who and what and why they exist. And I think that specificity and that intentionality is something that we invite the whole practice to really think about. And also I want to explicitly say that the increases in contributed revenue for organizations that have been historically undercapitalized must continue. It's irresponsible as a field to allow this sort of like flash in the pan moment of investment to think that that could correct generations and generations of active harm. And especially in this moment in the country, it just feels really important to explicitly say, like, we can't uplift and celebrate the practices of those folks and then continue to say, like, you'll get what's left. And so we just want to be really explicit that that's something that shows up in the data and that we feel like we want to put a spotlight on because we don't want it to be quiet if that changes in the future.
Back to your points about resources, it's you know, luckily one thing is that real estate in New York is super affordable and reasonable, is what we found in the data. No, we did not. We did not find that in the data. Unfortunately, what we found was that it, you know, it cuts both ways. I know that this conversation about space scarcity has been going on for a long time. The pandemic moment around this survey gave us really interesting things to see, where on one hand, organizations that owned space had long-term leases or long-term access to space. On one hand, they had that overhead that they were dealing with at a time where we did not need additional overhead. And also, over time, though, they were able to use those spaces to generate revenue, to be able to sort of have a consistent source of income through things like rentals, other types of things, so that they saw overall income rise in that 3-year period by 44%. As compared to organizations that are more itinerant or only have short-term leases or no dedicated space at all. They, again, during the pandemic, it was kind of nice to not have that overhead, not have that burden of a physical plant space to worry about, but then not having that asset to then work with as, you know, rescue funds started to come in, but then dry up, and what do we do here? And unfortunately, they as a group saw overall revenue fall by 28% in the same time period as compared with the organizations that owned space, rising by 44%. So I think fascinating to know, and also, well, what is the answer? It can't just be, well, then go out and get a space. Everybody just go out and get a space, right? That's the lesson. Risa, I'm curious, based on the research, what recommendations have emerged so far for how organizations can overcome these challenges?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. You know, so as everyone has been saying, we're trying to work through a moment that is intensely overstimulating and in many ways very destructive. And one of the most important things that we found in our data of past years that I think is still true right now is to know who you are and know who you serve and know why you serve them. And so we strongly recommend that groups get specific about who is your intended audience and are you meeting them? And it's not just audience like the people who are in the seats watching your shows, it's the artists that you wish to serve. It's the work culture that you wish to have and the people that you wish to hire. Get specific about who you are and how you're going to reach those people and take the time to reflect on that. The groups that have done that already have found greater stability. I think a big reason for this is that they can then seek funding with greater intentionality. And they can make good use of the time they have for fundraising and other approaches to getting resources that they need, whether that's through marketing campaigns or, again, through fundraising and development. I don't want to overlook the fact that the need for multi-year general operating support and grants to support organizational capacity building continue to be of critical importance. And as Talia said, and I'll say again, it can't be a fad that we're supporting groups with an identity-specific mission. These groups who have been undercapitalized for generations and have felt violent impacts of systemic racism and other forms of oppression, they need to be funded long-term. It can't be like a momentary choice that feels values aligned until something else does. If you find yourself veering away from what you've planned for in that, again, specific intention towards building a community, let's say, take time for more reflection, right? It's not necessarily a bad thing that you might find your people are those who are unexpected to you. But you should not lose that impulse towards intentionality. And again, you should always be taking time for that. Additional recommendations include, we found that groups that were able to enter into partnerships that were both mission aligned and helped them meet the needs for resources, whether that was collectively sharing commonly held resources or otherwise finding ways to share resources in pursuit of a common goal, whether that's a co-production or something else. Those groups also found greater stability and greater opportunities for growth. So, both through some programmatic initiatives that we will that we'll give you more information about in the full report, and I'll talk a little bit about later tonight. Art New York is planning to find ways to encourage partnerships like this that work towards resource sharing, and we would strongly recommend that people engage in this way and sort of like throw off the fear that sharing means you're going to get less. And lean into the notion that, in a moment where it feels like scarcity is threatening you, actually leaning into partnerships and collaborations is a way to practice that abundance mindset that is going to lead us towards liberation and a more creative future. Thanks. I really believe that. And finally, peer learning, right? Like, again, in this moment, we tend to isolate. We need to find opportunities to share our learnings with one another in order to find affirmation, right? Both affirmation that like what we're going through is really what we're going through, right? This 20-year decline in decrease in philanthropic giving, the other like tightenings that Talia spoke about, certainly everything that's happening at the federal level, like it's really happening, and you need to be together in space with one another to share those experiences and also to find solutions. So again, Art New York has some specific intentions towards new initiatives to encourage peer learning, and we encourage you to be in space and time and share together.
Thank you so much for that. Very well said. And I want to repeat the theme that Orion touched on earlier. Your liberation is entwined with mine. I think that's a theme that keeps coming up here. These older models of things that were expected have been falling away, whether that's 20 years of sort of institutional philanthropy or the last couple of years of COVID relief funding. All of the crutches are dissolving. And so what do we do from here? I think radical collaboration is certainly emerged as a theme in our work as well, since Sarah mentioned that. And it's also those transformations are coming from within organizations as well as being subjected to them from the outside. So Annie, I'm curious, what did you learn in the research about how leadership changes within organizations are impacting collaborations? What patterns did you observe?
Yeah, I mean, as you all know, in addition to facing the crisis of COVID and the financial cliff that Talia referred to, we've also seen a moment of leadership transformation, which, again, positive and disruptive. And I think what we saw in the financial trends and case studies was that organizations that executed really intentional leadership changes, this could include succession planning, it might include sunsetting or archiving programs or merging or partnering more extensively with other organizations. Those tended to be most successful and kind of most stable over the trend period from 2019 to 2023. And I think overall, and everyone has touched on this in different ways, but while there was the dams of federal funding opened for one glorious moment. At the same time, I think what we saw was a sense of, no one is coming to save us. So how do we kind of save ourselves, rethink models, collaborate radically in this moment?
Yeah. And so Risa and Talia, as folks who have some familiarity maybe with leadership transformations, how can organizations navigate leadership changes while maintaining these kinds of strong collaborations we're seeing?
Yeah. I have seen this at Art New York. It is borne out in the data, and we write about it in the report, and many of you have lived it. It takes intentional planning. There are many times where a leadership transition comes from an unexpected moment. And there are also many times when it's a long time coming and you can see it far down the road. In either of those cases, you would benefit from intentional planning. Where this is both the importance of an organization thinking about succession planning long before it's time to engage in that, and also again in those moments where your organization knows that a transfer of assets will be needed, the sunsetting of a long-term program is coming to an end, or again a leader is going to move on. Taking the time and yes, the financial resources that are demanded to intentionally plan for that is going to better ensure a stable future and also a future that regardless of the outcome is the right one for your organization that you can feel real integrity about. Art New York is looking forward to delivering some new services in the next year that are specifically focused on transitions, leadership transitions, transitions in and around assets and major programs. We want to be your partner in this. Talia, what would you add?
Yeah, I think it was really well said. And I think that the big thing is that we, as maybe people and as certainly as Americans and people who make things, make stories, do art, we're very good at the making. Strike is always hard for us. It's difficult to think about endings. And, we as a culture don't have a very good practice for thinking about and honoring and making space for what is inevitable. And I think there is there are both practical recommendations that I think we want to partner with the field to make more available, which is absolutely time, money, peer support, relationships, documentation, all of the incredible work that Creatives Rebuild New York has done of bequeathing the field with this incredible treasure trove of information. We know that there are practical and tactical tools that we need to offer, but I think we also want to be supportive of this sort of cultural shift that makes it more normal and healthy and respectful and beautiful to think about what comes next, whatever that is. Because I think, the other invitation that I really heard from Orion is we can make a new thing. A new thing is going to happen either way. And so let us make a new thing and do it with the same spirit that we bring to tech. That we all roll our sleeves up and make that time to get messy together. We can do that with our organizations and our practices as well. And so that's sort of the offering spiritually in addition to tactically.
It was one of my favorite things about this was that there was so much coming out of it that spoke not only to Art New York's specific role, and there were lots of questions that were specifically about Art New York and the ways that it could show up in this moment, but there were clear insights, recommendations, and calls to action that came out of it for New York City theater makers and funders and really every member of our community. So back to you again, Art New York folks. Based on the insights, what would you say are those kind of key takeaways for the Art New York members, and how should they be able to look forward to using this research themselves?
Yeah, we hope this is useful, right? So we didn't want to make a report that is beautiful and bound and sits on your desk and you never look at it. So you actually won't be able to get a physical copy of it. It will be on the internet. But I think the intention around that is that we really want it to be something that you can leverage in conversations with your boards, or when you think about opportunities for your own organization. When you go to your own funders, we hope that there is information and insight and data in this report that allows you to feel really grounded, I think, as Risa was saying, in a shared thing that's true. We want us to all have some language and some frameworks that don't feel as fragmented and that allow us to build a narrative that we can all have a part in. And so we hope that it's a tool. We hope that there are things that allow you to think differently. We hope that our funders and our partners our other ASOs, everyone that Art New York is in community with. We hope it's a tool for all of us to kind of roll up our sleeves and think differently about how we can engage, as Justin said, with sort of like being part of the solution and making a thing that's new. So we hope it's a good tool.
And we're going to use this tool too. Art New York is 53 years old. It's amazing. And that history really carries us. And we have a history of being responsive and also of being iterative. And so and Talia talked about this a little bit in the beginning, we didn't just engage in this research and develop this report for you. We did it for ourselves to better understand how we can meet you where you are, wherever that is, and provide the services and other resources that you really need right now. So you can continue to count on us as your partner in this moment and well into the future. So we'll be using this report too, and you'll see some changes in our service provision because of what we've learned here. One great example of this that is actually going to start as a pilot in a few weeks is that we'll be partnering with Revenue, the new project developed by Megan Finn, the longtime artistic director of The Tank. And part of why we're engaging in Revenue is because we think it is an exemplar of how people with different resources can come together and share them with those who need them. So Revenue is a project through which artists get free access to performance spaces all over the city. They receive income from the box office that they generate. The venue, in lieu of a rental fee, also gets a cut of that box office to cover their own expenses. And in doing this, we get to see lots and lots of new artists, new techniques, and new projects in theaters, again, all over New York, that we might not otherwise see because, as in the case of Art New York, our current rental model is a very typical sort of like off-Broadway model where you receive a greater subsidy for renting more and more weeks. And this is great, right? Like, we're not knocking this. We love it. We love the shows that happen in our theaters. But there are lots of artists who need a different model, right? They need access to shorter term space. They want to do a shorter run. They can't afford a rental fee, but they're going to generate box office. And so working with Revenue allows us to make our space accessible to those artists, and it allows you to see their work. And these artists, many of them, are reflective of the largest growing population and the largest segment of the population of our members, which are theater companies with a budget under $500,000. So it also helps us meet our members where they are.
It has been a real thrill, I will have to say, as just the sort of
America's railroad system.
What?
Agreed.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I did not.
We want more trains.
Risa, did you want to talk about the railroad system?
I would love high-speed rail, and that's a different panel. Yes, everyone wants this, so we'll convene later.
As long as we're all agreed on the most important takeaway. So I just wanted to say it's been a real privilege to see, because this has gone on for the time that it's gone on for, I've gotten to see the way that Art New York has already responded to a lot of these things, that there are already things in the hopper, already things that are being mobilized before this publication has even hit the newsstands. And so I just want to offer my congratulations and thanks to the Art New York team. Where can people find more information about this research, and how can we keep everybody engaged?
Yes, so our drop date, I feel like Beyonce, we'll be releasing the new album on May 1st. It will be on the Art New York website. We are really excited about it. Also, it will come to your inboxes. We won't make it hard to find. Also, over the next few months, you can expect to hear from us. We want to talk with you. We want to hear from you, questions that you have about the report. It's our hope to convene sort of small group discussions with organizations that have maybe shared characteristics or divergent characteristics so that we can start testing some of these ideas. We truly do want your questions and feedback. I think it's an opportunity. This is the first time we've ever done anything like this, and we feel so supported by the care and rigor that SMU Data Arts has brought to this project, that Justin and his team have brought to this project. And also, we know we're gonna get better by the questions and ideas that you bring to us. So please consider it an invitation. We also will have a town hall at the end of the summer, where we'll share more of these sort of programming commitments that Risa was alluding to. We speak about them a little bit in the report, and we're hoping that by the end of the summer, we'll have a little bit more flesh on those bones. So you can expect kind of an opportunity to be in community again, to talk about what Art New York will do next. And that's for you, that's for the members.
Yeah. We're also hosting a funder briefing on May 8th. I see a couple of our wonderful funders here this evening who have already RSVP'd. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know, again, a lot of the findings and recommendations here are geared towards theater makers, and others are geared towards Art New York, and still others are geared towards funders and other resource providers. And so we'll be hosting a briefing to share specifically with them what those recommendations are. We're also planning to meet with a variety of public officials, both representatives from the Department of Cultural Affairs, NYSCA, City Council, and the Mayor's Office throughout the spring to share our report with them. And we will be planning for some separate engagements with our artist service organization, ASO partners, to see how we can collaborate based on the findings here and some of the initiatives that we'll be embarking on in response.
All right, we've reached the culmination. Thank you all so much for your time. I want to do one quick, just a quick round of acknowledgements, both for Talia and Risa, and also Adam Mummery, who has been a Dynamite member of the Art New York contingent of this project, as well as Annie and her colleagues, Jen Benoit Bryan, and Rebecca Roscoe from SMU Data Arts. Thank you so much. And not able to join us this evening is one of my partners in crime, Deborah Abramson-Kroll, who works with Skeleton Key Strategies and has led the publication phase, the drafting phase of the things that you're going to see a little bit later tonight and in a couple of weeks. And Deborah has done an amazing job as well. So let's. Thank you again so much for your time. The highlights document that we've been teasing is available at the check-in desk downstairs where you came in, so I know that you are dying to take a look at some of those insights. Also, these wonderful reusable wine glasses that you have, we would love to return those, please, to an Art New York staff member who has an Art New York badge to avoid landfill, because Art New York cares about this planet as well.
Yeah.
Let's remember that.
We do.
We do.
Thank you all again for this discussion. We look forward to seeing how all of these insights translate into action, and we appreciate your time and attention.
And we like to party with you, so stay and have some food and
Yeah,
drinks.
come hang out.
And thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you, everyone.